Burton to make her contribution.
Thank you, Alaska Hirlock.
To order.
At the opening of his speech, Minister Lenihan referred to households and businesses continuing to work off the excesses of the boom. He makes the adjustments and the cuts sound like it's a walk in the park sometime after your Christmas dinner, or it's like joining the gym, or going down to Unislim. It's a way of working off the excess that you've built up over the boom. Pity that there's such a slimming of income that's been applied to people who are working people and to people who are in middle income, because they are the people in this budget who are doing the heavy lifting. And if it's a couple, I dare say the Minister must be aware that the cut's been borne by people with children. And, you know, child benefit is generally still almost universally paid to women. That their cuts taken this year and last year are in fact the biggest of all. And I suppose it is a comment on how few women there are in this House, and it is a comment on how little political power they exercise compared really to bankers. You know, the Minister is always yes to bankers. It seems to be for this Minister and his different budgets always difficult in relation to payments in respect of children. And in the table of the reductions in expenditure, and they're spot on, Minister, well done, you passed the first test in the Memorandum of Understanding, spot on for the IMF and the ECB, the reductions of 2,192, they're very close to the figures in the memorandum. So when the figures get sent over on Friday, per the Memorandum of Understanding, I suppose you'll get, you know, 1 star for getting so close to the figures. But it's very noticeable that health and children, out of cuts of 2,192, take a cut of 746 million, and that social protection takes a cut of 873 million. That is, that health and children and social protection take a hit of 1,600 million, 1.6 billion, out of total cuts of 2.1 billion. It really is a heavy hit on a particular sector that does encompass the notion, more than anything else, of social solidarity and of need, and that we should remain a one Ireland society. Yes, we have our millionaires, or we had our billionaires, but you know, we should still remain, and that's the principle of the Labour Party, that we're a one Ireland society and that those who have most should contribute the most. I mean, the budget coming after 13 years of Fianna Fáil misrule might be described as the last sting of the dying wasp, but it's a pretty vicious sting, and one that carries a long tail life, not just for today, but for the next 4 years. And as I said, the people who will feel the biggest sting will be people with children, and I'll come back to that in a moment or two. There is enough austerity in today's announcement by Minister Lenihan to make even the most ardent Tea Party fan grin in delight. Pain for the poor, money for the rich, particularly the bankers, and the rolling back of the state. We in Ireland are now entering our 3rd and a quarter year of fiscal austerity. And I think it's very important that all the international cameras and so on who've been covering Ireland should understand that this is Ireland in its 3rd and a quarter year of austerity. This is our 6th budget or adjustment statement since July of 2008, shortly after Brian Cowan and Brian Lenihan were elected to their current offices. The first 5 budgets and adjustment statements took $14.6 billion out of the economy. But those in the austerity and the hair short camp want more. I mean, the Irish people were just a little bit like Oliver. Oliver, please, sir, give me some more austerity. Today's $6 billion of further austerity will bring the total taken out of the Irish economy over 3¼ years to an eye-watering $21 billion. 21 billion, or 16% of GNP. The IMF, and we met with the IMF on a number of occasions during the recent talks, and it was very clear to the Labour Party that they clearly understood that there is no modern example of a developed economy deflating to this extraordinary degree and then claiming that it can grow like topsy. The 21 billion of deflationary reductions risks putting Ireland into the dreaded deflation spiral, the terror of the Hoover years of the Great Depression in the United States. And that is why, Minister, the Labour Party argued for an adjustment of 4.5 billion, which of course is pretty tough. It's extremely tough. There's no doubt about that. Because we wanted to promote and leave room for the certainty of growth. And I met Mr. Wren when he was here and discussed with him this magic figure of 6 billion which had appeared. And I talked with him about what had happened in Finland and then what had happened in Sweden in relation to their banking crisis. And Mr. Wren, said to me, well, the Swedes learned an awful lot from the Finnish banking crisis and what they did, nationalising and taking into temporary public ownership the banks and so on. And then he said, and Ireland, but he left any further comment unspoken. Ireland didn't learn from Finland or Sweden. This budget smacks of Ireland doing case studies in Japan and the unfortunate effects of zombie banking on that economy. We have unfortunately mirrored it to an extraordinary extent. Japanese people who live in Ireland talk about it continuously, the close parallel between what happened in that economy and what is happening in Ireland now. Japanese people I know tell me what the next thing will be. So I think it's so unfortunate. And Mr. Wren, having delivered on behalf, presumably of the ECB, I don't know, the 6 billion adjustment, what did he do last week? He, of course, came back and reduced his forecast for the Irish growth rate to 0.9%. So what has all the austerity and deflation so far done for us as a country? Over 2¼ years of austerity, unemployment has risen from 4 to 14%. That's about 435,000 people. Austerity has slashed growth. It has killed consumer confidence and turned us into a nation who are busy paying down debt or saving, anything but spending. And people who study the behaviour of people in depressions, particularly people like shopkeepers, not just economists, can tell you that in Great Depressions, like we're enduring in Ireland, people change their spending patterns permanently. People know people who lived in the Great Depression in America. They will know that those people remain what the Americans call frugal and tight right to this day because of the searing experience of what happened to them. And a lot of people fear that all this austerity is doing the same to Ireland. It's, you know, you walk down Grafton Street, you used to see people in Grafton Street with 2 or 3 shopping bags. I can tell you now, you'd be very lucky. You'd need to be a very dedicated, well-off fashionista to come out of Grafton Street with 2 or 3 shopping bags nowadays. You're very lucky to see one shopping bag, and often it's just a tiny little one tied up in a bow. The European, what else has austerity done? It's brought the return of the emigrant plane. It's reckoned by the SRI but that by next April, 100,000 people will have left this country. Some of them, our brightest and our best and our young people, will have left during this austerity period and during the first quarter of this next budget. It's very, very sobering, particularly people who came home, started to build a life here and then left again. And we know it in all the GAA teams in clubs all around the country, not just in rural areas, but even in clubs in Dublin. The guys for the teams and the girls for the teams, they're no longer sure at weekends because they've gone away. They've gone away to get work, as unfortunately a lot of their grandfathers and grandmothers did. And it is very sad for people in Ireland to have to relive this experience. The European Commission and the ECB are understandably outraged at what they see as Ireland's fecklessness, but should the punishment be visited disproportionately on the more vulnerable sections of Irish society? Ever since the fall of Lehman Brothers, this government and orthodox economists have insisted that bank losses should be socialised, while bank profits during the boom years were privatised. The debt burden which Ireland now carries and which this budget is designed to ensure we repay smacks more of reparations than of repayments. A more holistic approach adopted by our international helpers with burden sharing of the bank restructuring, including by bondholders and foreign banks, and a longer time span would leave us better prepared to repay and to be part of a European-wide reflation. In the end, this would, in my view, be better for Germany as well. In one of Keynes's best-known works, The Economic Consequences of the Peace, he predicted that reparations to be paid by the German people after the First World War and the Treaty of Versailles would produce an economic and political catastrophe. To quote Keynes then, if we aim deliberately at the impoverishment of Central Europe, vengeance, I dare predict, will not limp. Europe and the European Union has an extraordinary range of achievements to its credit, and the membership of the Union has been, in my view, exceptionally beneficial for Ireland and for the people of Ireland. The European Union rests on a fundamental concept of solidarity. Without the glue of solidarity, Europe as a concept could be fatally undermined, and not just in Ireland, but in all those weaker countries, from Greece to Portugal and even Spain, Belgium and Italy. A new government should seek as a priority to renegotiate the terms. We need a cheaper interest rate, we need a longer time frame, and we need the kind of interest rates that the IMF would normally apply to a country like Ireland, which could be as low as about 3.2% and as high as about 4.2%. That's the kind of interest rate your negotiators and your government should have negotiated for our people. I know that many people are nervous of market reactions to large public deficits and sluggish growth. Well, now imagine market reactions to no growth and much larger deficits. What has driven the panic in the bond markets over both Ireland and Portugal is just that. There was the belief that both economies would be stagnant in the coming years and therefore would become even more indebted because we were so mired in the consequences of our banking failure. Growth matters desperately to Ireland's prospects. Ireland, Spain, Portugal, all very different economies. They're crudely lumped together in a bond market sin bin. We can escape from that sin bin if we can restore confidence in future growth from all sectors of the economy, not just the export sector. And that means getting ordinary people buying again and spending again, and not just saving. So who are the winners and the losers in today's budgets? The winners are undoubtedly the banks, both foreign and Irish, hoovering up our money, not just to bail out our own Irish banks, but to bail out the bondholders who so foolishly lent to our out-of-control bankers and developers. There is no doubt that Ireland had exceptionally greedy and foolish bankers and developers who borrowed like crazy when the flow of cheap money from the Eurozone seemed literally like the gold at the end of the rainbow. There is no doubt that Ireland and its failed system of governance and its failed system of regulation carries the major share of the responsibility. However, some responsibility must be borne by those foreign lenders who lent so recklessly and greedily. The ECB, from their lofty perches, should have been more familiar with bubbles. Another class of winners are those developers and property tycoons whose comfortable exile has been enabled and abetted by our kind and generous government regime, which permits those who owe hundreds and billions of unpaid loans safe and easy transfer of very large amounts of assets to spouses and family. Who knows, perhaps, all those tycoons with their multi-million pads in nice places like Connecticut, within easy commuting distance of New York City, like Mr. Dunn and Mr. Drum. We read all about them in the newspapers this weekend and every weekend. To use Minister Lenihan's phrase, they continue to party on. Unislim for the rest of us, but party time is still on for them. Who are the losers? Well, a family with 3 children in this budget will lose €40 a month in child benefit. This is in addition to the previous cuts in child benefit last year, where they lost a significant amount of money. The job seekers benefit is being reduced today by €8. Disability, and you know, most people on disability have really limited capacity for working, and usually their expenses because of their disability are higher. They're down €8 a week to €188 a week. Somebody who's blind is down €8 a week to €188 a week. And people who are carers are down by €8 to €204 a week. And where people have adult dependents, they're down by €5 a week. So for a couple in these categories, it's a reduction of over €13 a week. That's pretty tough when you're on a fairly slim and tight income. So they're certainly are losers. Other losers in the budget today are really the small and medium businesses around the country, for whom this budget has no mention, actually, of the flow of credit. Credit that we were promised would flow like milk and honey once NAMA got underway. Instead, NAMA seems to be a kind of a reverse proposition, sucking life out of the economy because its operations are simply so large. It's the biggest property company probably in Western Europe. It dominates a huge sector of commercial activity now. Okay, the people who provide professional services have service fees of up to $240 million a year. But it's sucking the capacity out of banks to give credit to our SMEs up and down the villages and towns of Ireland.